Money has a way of revealing truths people try to hide. I learned this standing outside my father's study, hearing him discuss my future, or rather, the lack of one he'd planned for me. We can't afford both, Linda. Emily's law school has to take priority. Sarah will have to make do with the diner job. My fingers dug into the doorframe as I listened. 22 years of being the family afterthought crystallized in that moment. The golden child Emily would get her shot at becoming a prestigious attorney while I'd be slinging hash browns at Pete's diner. But Robert, we promised both girls we'd help with their education. My mother's voice wavered, weak as always. Emily has real potential. Sarah just needs to be practical. I stepped back from the door, my chest tight with something between rage and vindication. All those years of telling myself I was imagining things, that my parents couldn't possibly favor Emily so blatantly, gone in an instant. The house felt suffocating. I grabbed my keys and jacket, needing to escape before I did something stupid, like confront them right then. But fate had other plans. Sarah, where are you going? Emily appeared at the top of the stairs, perfect as always in her designer outfit. Mom's making dinner. Family night, remember? I almost laughed. Family night. What a joke. Not feeling well, I managed, heading for the door. Wait. Emily descended the stairs, concern etched on her face. Is everything okay? You look upset. Everything's fine, just like always. Perfect, actually, just like you. She flinched at my tone. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just like my future, apparently. Sarah. The door slammed behind me with satisfying force. I made it halfway down the driveway before my father's voice boomed from the porch. Young lady, get back here right now. I turned, seeing him silhouetted in the doorway, my mother and Emily hovering anxiously behind him. 22 years of swallowed words rose in my throat. Why? So you can tell me to my face that I'm not worth investing in? That Emily is the only one who deserves a future? His face darkened. You were eavesdropping. Damn right I was. And I'm glad I did. Finally got some honesty around here. Sarah, please. My mother stepped forward. We can discuss this. Discuss what? How you've spent years funneling everything to Emily while telling me to be practical, to lower my expectations, to settle. Emily's face had gone pale. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, sis. But you wouldn't know about that, would you? My father's voice turned cold. That's enough. You're being childish and ungrateful. Ungrateful? I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. For what? The lifetime of being second best? The constant comparisons? Or maybe I should be grateful for the diner job you've so generously planned for my future. If you'd shown half the dedication Emily has. I got better grades than she did. I worked 2 jobs through high school while she went to dance lessons and tennis camp. I did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. Silence fell. My mother was crying now. Emily looked stricken. And my father just looked disappointed. As usual. If that's how you feel, he said finally, perhaps you should leave until you've calmed down and can be reasonable. Don't worry, I said, backing away. I'm done being reasonable. I'm done being practical. And I'm done being the family disappointment. I got in my car, hands shaking as I turned the key. Through the windshield, I could see them still standing there, the perfect family tableau, minus the inconvenient second daughter who'd finally stopped playing her assigned role. As I drove away, one thought crystallized in my mind. I was going to prove them wrong. And when I did, they'd regret every moment they'd spent underestimating me. I ended up at Aunt Clara's house that night, my hands still shaking as I clutched a cup of chamomile tea. Her Victorian home had always been my sanctuary, filled with antiques and the lingering scent of lavender. Tonight, it felt like my last refuge. Your father called, Aunt Clara said, settling into her worn leather armchair. He seems to think you're being unreasonable. Of course he does. The tea burned my throat. Did he mention the part where they've saved nothing for my education? Or how they expect me to spend my life serving pancakes while Emily becomes a lawyer. Aunt Clara's eyes narrowed. No, he conveniently left that out. A knock at the door made me jump. Aunt Clara touched my shoulder as she passed, her grip surprisingly strong for a woman of 70. I heard murmured voices, then my mother's distinctive pleading tone. Sarah, please, we need to talk. I set down my cup with enough force to splash tea onto the antique coffee table. There's nothing to talk about. My mother appeared in the doorway, looking smaller than usual. Your father didn't mean. Yes, he did. I stood up. He meant every word. He always has. You're both upset. If we could just sit down as a family. We're not a family. We're Emily's support system, and I'm just the backup plan that never quite measured up. Aunt Clara returned, her face set in lines I recognized from childhood, the expression she wore when she was about to shake things up. Linda, she said, sit down. We need to discuss some things. My mother perched on the edge of the sofa, twisting her wedding ring. Clara, this is between us and Sarah. No, it's not. Aunt Clara opened a drawer in her desk, pulling out a thick envelope. Sarah, I've been waiting for the right moment to give you this. I suppose that moment is now. The envelope felt heavy in my hands. Inside was a bank statement showing an account in my name with a balance that made my eyes widen. I started saving for both you girls when you were born, Aunt Clara said. Your parents knew about Emily's fund, but I kept yours separate. I had a feeling you might need it more. My mother's face went pale. Clara, you had no right. I had every right. I've watched for years as you and Robert poured everything into Emily, while Sarah fought for scraps of attention. Well, now she has options. The numbers on the statement blurred as tears filled my eyes. College tuition, a future, freedom. You can't do this, my mother whispered. I already have. Aunt Clara's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Sarah, the money is yours. No strings attached. You can use it for college, start a business, whatever you choose. My mother stood abruptly. Robert will hear about this. Good, Aunt Clara replied. Tell him his sister sees exactly what he's done to his daughters, both of them. After my mother left, slamming the door behind her, I sat in silence, staring at the statement. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I finally asked. I wanted to see if they'd do the right thing on their own. Aunt Clara sighed. I should have known better. Emily's fund is separate and safe. This isn't about punishing her, Sarah. It's about giving you the chance you deserve. I thought about Emily, golden child Emily, who'd never had to wonder if she was enough. They'll try to make me share it with her. They can try. Aunt Clara's smile was sharp. But the account is in your name only. I made sure of that. Looking at her, I saw the steel beneath her gentle exterior. She'd been playing the long game, watching and waiting, preparing for this moment. What do I do now? I asked. Whatever you want. That's the beauty of it. She leaned forward. But might I suggest starting with that business degree you've always dreamed about? For the first time since overhearing my father's words, I felt something like hope, but mixed with it was something darker, a determination to show them exactly what their practical daughter could do. They'll never forgive you for this, I said. Aunt Clara's laugh was dry as autumn leaves. My dear, at my age, forgiveness is far less interesting than justice. Now, shall we look at college applications? I smiled, feeling the weight of the envelope in my hands. It wasn't just money, it was ammunition, and I intended to use every bullet. 3 months into my first semester at business school, Aunt Clara called with news that made my coffee go cold. Emily's perfect life was imploding, and for once, I had a front row seat to the disaster. Mark was arrested this morning, Aunt Clara said, her voice crackling through the phone. Securities fraud. It's all over the local news. I switched to speaker and pulled up the news site. There he was, Mark Johnson, Emily's boyfriend of 2 years, being led out of his investment firm in handcuffs. The golden boy who'd charmed our parents at every family dinner was now accused of running a Ponzi scheme that had cost his clients millions. Emily must be devastated, I said, surprised to find I meant it. That's not all. Aunt Clara paused. She knew Sarah. She worked in the firm's legal department. They're investigating her involvement. The satisfaction I'd expected to feel didn't come. Instead, my stomach twisted. How bad is it? Your father's firm is distancing itself. They've put her on indefinite leave. Your parents... Another pause. They're selling the lake house to cover her legal fees. The lake house. The same one they'd refused to mortgage for my education. My phone buzzed with another call. Emily's number. I declined it, watching as it immediately lit up again. She's been trying to reach you, Aunt Clara said. I'm not ready to talk to her. Sometimes people surprise us, Sarah. Even the ones who've hurt us most. I ended the call and sat in silence, watching Emily's name flash on my screen again and again. Finally, I picked up. Sarah. Her voice was raw, nothing like her usual polished tones. I need your help. That's new. I deserve that. She took a shuddering breath. But please, just listen. I can't talk to Mom and Dad about this. They wouldn't understand. Understand what? That their perfect daughter isn't so perfect? That I knew what Mark was doing and I looked the other way? The words tumbled out. I found discrepancies in the paperwork months ago. He convinced me it was just aggressive investment strategy, that everyone did it. I wanted to believe him. Why are you telling me this? Because you're the only one who won't be shocked that I failed. Her laugh was bitter. You've been expecting it all along, haven't you? I thought about all the times I'd wished for this. For Emily to fall, for our parents to see her flaws. The reality felt hollow. The investigators, she continued, they're offering a deal. If I testify against Mark, they'll grant me immunity. But Mom and Dad, they keep talking about loyalty, about standing by him. They don't understand what he really is. And what's that? A monster in an expensive suit. Her voice cracked, just like I was. A fraud in designer clothes pretending to be something I'm not. I closed my eyes, remembering all the perfect family photos. Emily always front and center, me relegated to the edges. Why should I help you? Because you're smarter than me, Sarah. You always were. You saw through everything. Our parents, their expectations, this whole facade. I need that clarity now. You want my advice? Take the deal. Burn it all down. Silence stretched between us. Then, will you come with me? To the prosecutor's office. I thought about my morning class, the midterm I should be studying for. When? Tomorrow at 9. She hesitated. I know I don't deserve your help. No, you don't, I cut her off. But I'll be there. Not for you. For the truth. After we hung up, I sat staring at my reflection in the darkened window. The sister who'd always lived in Emily's shadow was now the one she turned to for strength. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone lit up with a text from our father. Emily needs her family united right now. Whatever issues you have with us need to wait. I typed back 4 words. I'll handle it myself. Just like I always had. Tomorrow I'd watch Emily dismantle her perfect life, piece by piece. Part of me would enjoy it. I wasn't saint enough to pretend otherwise, but another part recognized something familiar in her voice. The sound of someone realizing their whole life had been built on shadows and lies. I opened my laptop and began researching securities fraud cases. If Emily was going to burn it all down, I'd make sure she did it right. After all, revenge is a dish best served with impeccable legal documentation. The Dean's List notification arrived the same morning as Emily's sentencing. I stared at both messages on my phone, wondering if this was Karma's idea of poetry, top of my class in business school, while my sister faced 18 months of probation and mandatory community service. My father's name lit up my screen. I hadn't spoken to him since the prosecutor's office, but I answered anyway. "Your mother and I are having dinner at Lorenzo's tonight," he said, skipping any greeting. "We need to discuss Emily's situation. I have exams. This is family, Sarah, more important than any test." I watched students stream past my dorm window, heading to class. Funny how family wasn't more important than Emily's law school when it came to my education. That's not fair. Actually, it's exactly fair. Emily made her choices. She can deal with the consequences. "She's lost everything," he said, his voice cracking. "Her career, her reputation. And you're still more worried about her than proud of me." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Silence stretched between us. "What do you mean?" "I made Dean's List, first semester of business school. Not that you asked." More silence. I could almost see him processing this information, trying to fit it into his worldview where Emily was the achiever and I was the practical one. That's wonderful, Sarah. But right now, Emily needs help." "Of course." I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "You know what? I have to go. Good luck with dinner." I ended the call and opened my laptop, pulling up the business proposal I'd been working on. Greg Matthews, the restaurant chain owner who'd given me my first job, had mentioned an internship opportunity. My proposal was due tomorrow. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Emily stood there, looking smaller in jeans and a plain sweater. No more designer labels. "Aunt Clara told me about Dean's List," she said. "Congratulations." I left the door open, but returned to my desk. "Thanks." She hovered in the doorway. "Mum and Dad don't get it, do they? How hard you've worked." "They don't want to get it. It doesn't fit their narrative." I didn't either. She stepped inside, closing the door. I believed what they believed, that I was the successful one, the one with potential. "But you," she picked up one of my textbooks, "you're going to surpass everything they ever imagined for me. Is that why you're here? To acknowledge my potential?" "No." She set the book down. "I'm here because Dad called. They're planning to ask you for money tonight, for my legal fees." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "What?" "The lake house sale fell through. They're desperate." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I told them not to ask you, but they won't listen. They still think they can fix everything for me." I turned back to my laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "And what do you think?" "I think it's time I fix things myself." She moved toward the door. "I got a job. Nothing special. Administrative work at a small firm, but it's honest work." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you were right about everything, and I wanted you to know that before they tried to drag you back into their version of reality tonight." After she left, I sat staring at my business proposal. The internship would be demanding. 60-hour weeks, intense training, no room for family drama. Exactly what I needed. I opened my phone and typed a message to my father. "Can't make dinner. Deadline for an opportunity I can't miss. Emily knows how to reach me if she needs to." Then I turned back to my proposal, adding a final section about navigating complex business relationships and maintaining professional boundaries. Greg Matthews would appreciate the irony, even if he never knew the full story. My phone buzzed with responses from my parents, but I didn't read them. Instead, I focused on my work, letting their messages pile up like the years of expectations I was finally learning to ignore. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone else's dreams. Sometimes it's about building your own, brick by brick, while they watch from the sidelines, finally understanding what they failed to see. Life has a twisted sense of humor. I discovered this standing outside Pete's diner, watching Emily tie on the same apron our father had once intended for me. Her hands shook as she struggled with the strings, her manicured nails a stark contrast against the worn fabric. Greg Matthews stood beside me, his presence a reminder of why we were here. "Your sister starts training today, apparently." I checked my watch. "We should head inside. The investment meeting can wait 5 minutes." He studied Emily through the window. "Interesting choice, her working here. Desperate times." I adjusted my blazer, the fabric smooth and expensive against my skin. It's the only place that would hire her with her record. The bell chimed as we entered. Emily's head snapped up, her eyes widening at my business attire. I pretended not to notice, leading Greg to our usual booth. "Sarah." Emily approached, notepad trembling slightly. "I didn't know you were coming in today." "Monthly investment meeting with Greg. We always have it here." I kept my voice neutral. "Coffee, black, Greg, the same." He watched Emily hurry away. "You didn't warn her." "Should I have?" The door chimed again. Our parents walked in, stopping short when they saw me. Of course they'd come to support Emily's first day. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Sarah." My mother stepped forward. "We didn't expect." "Clearly." I turned to Greg. "The projection reports show a 30% increase in revenue since implementing your new system." My father approached our table, his presence casting a shadow over our papers. "You look well, Sarah. The business world suits you." "Dad." Emily returned with our coffee, nearly spilling it. "It's fine, Emily." I pulled out my laptop. "They're here for you, not me. Greg and I have work to discuss." "Actually," my father cleared his throat, "we hope to speak with both of you about the family trust." The laptop screen blurred slightly. "What trust?" "Your grandfather's." He glanced at Greg. "Perhaps we could discuss this privately." "Greg's my business partner. Anything you need to say, you can say in front of him." My mother touched Emily's arm. "Sweetheart, maybe you should take your break now." "The trust," my father continued, "was meant to be split between you girls. But with Emily's legal fees and the conditions of her probation, the pieces clicked into place. You want my half. We want to protect your sister's future." Greg set down his coffee cup with deliberate care. "Robert, perhaps this isn't the best time." "When is the best time?" My voice cut through the diner's morning chatter. "When Emily needs more money. When you run out of ways to prop up her mistakes." "Sarah, please," my mother pleaded. "She's trying to rebuild. By taking my inheritance, after everything." I stood gathering my papers. "Greg, we should continue this at the office." "Sarah, please." Emily stepped forward, still clutching her notepad. "I didn't know they were going to do this. I told them not to." "Save it." I met her eyes. "You know what's funny? Dad always said I should work here because it was practical, because it was all I could hope for. Now look at us." My father's face darkened. "That's enough." "No, it's not enough." I turned to Greg. "You know why I work so hard? Why I've doubled our profits in 6 months? Because they taught me that nothing would ever be handed to me. And they were right." The diner had gone quiet, other customers pretending not to watch the drama unfolding. "Keep the trust," I said, gathering my things. "Consider it payment for showing me exactly who I could become by being nothing like any of you." Greg followed me out, waiting until we reached the car to speak. That was quite a scene. "I apologize. It won't affect our business." "Sarah." He touched my shoulder. "I'm promoting you to regional manager. You've earned it. And clearly you need to get as far from this town as possible." I gripped my laptop, knuckles white. Through the diner window, I could see Emily wiping tables while our parents hovered nearby, still trying to fix her life, while mine expanded beyond their reach. "When do I start? How fast can you pack?" I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting away. 6 months into my role as regional manager, Aunt Clara died. The news came via text from Emily, of all people. 3 words that shattered my carefully constructed new life. Aunt Clara's gone. I stood in my office overlooking the Chicago skyline, my reflection ghostly in the window. The quarterly reports I'd been reviewing blurred into meaningless shapes. My phone buzzed again. "Emily, the funeral's Saturday. She left something for you." I booked the first flight home, arriving to find my parents' car already in Aunt Clara's driveway. Of course they'd be here, probably already dividing up her possessions like they'd tried to divide my inheritance. The key was still under the ceramic frog where she'd always kept it. Inside, voices drifted from her study. "We have to tell her," my mother was saying, "before she finds out some other way." "Tell me what?" I stepped into the doorway. They jumped, guilty faces turning toward me. Emily sat in Aunt Clara's chair, holding a familiar envelope. "Sarah," my father stepped forward. "We didn't expect you so soon." Clearly, I noticed the open safe behind the desk, papers scattered across the surface. "What are you doing?" Emily held up the envelope. Aunt Clara left letters and recordings. "And she recorded everything," my mother whispered. "All our conversations about you and Emily, about the college fund, about how you plan to use me as Emily's backup plan." The words tasted bitter. I already knew that. "No," Emily's voice cracked. "About how they planned to use both of us, how they manipulated everything, played us against each other. Even Aunt Clara's money was part of their plan." The room tilted slightly. "What?" My father reached for me. "Sarah, we can explain. Don't touch me." I snatched the envelope from Emily. Inside was a USB drive and a letter in Aunt Clara's elegant handwriting. "My dearest Sarah," it began, "by now you've discovered that your parents' manipulation runs deeper than you imagined. The money I gave you wasn't just savings, it was evidence. Every transaction, every conversation recorded. Your father's firm has been embezzling funds for years, using both you and Emily as unwitting covers." The letter dropped from my trembling hands. "You used us, both of us." "We were trying to protect the family," my father said. "The firm was failing." "So you set Emily up with Mark, knowing he was running a Ponzi scheme? Let her take the fall while you cleaned up the evidence?" Emily made a small broken sound. "They knew all along. They knew what Mark was doing." "And me?" I turned to my mother. "Was anything real? Or was I just another piece in your game?" "We're still your parents," she pleaded. "Everything we did was for the family." I laughed, the sound harsh and foreign. "No, it was for you, for your reputation, your lifestyle, your precious image." My phone buzzed, Greg Matthews calling, probably wondering why his regional manager had suddenly flown cross-country without explanation. "Sarah," Emily stood up. "Aunt Clara left something else, evidence that could expose everything. She wanted us to decide together what to do with it." I stared at my sister, seeing not the golden child who'd had everything handed to her, but another victim of our parents' schemes. "You knew," I said to Emily, "about the recordings. That's why you've been reaching out." She nodded. "Aunt Clara told me last month. She wanted us to know the truth before she couldn't tell us herself." My phone buzzed again. Greg's name flashed on the screen, a reminder of the life I'd built, the success I'd achieved, thinking it was all to prove my parents wrong. But they'd known. They'd planned it all, probably counting on my drive to succeed, on Emily's fall from grace, on our predictable reactions to their careful manipulations. "Sarah," Emily's voice was small. "What do we do now?" I looked at our parents, these strangers who'd orchestrated our entire lives like some twisted chess game. Then at Emily, who'd lost everything only to discover she'd never really had it to begin with. My phone buzzed a third time. "We do what Aunt Clara wanted," I said finally. "We decide together, but this time we make our own moves." The USB drive felt heavy in my hand, carrying the weight of truths that could destroy what remained of our family, or finally set us free. The conference room at Matthews's restaurant group felt too small for the weight of what we were about to do. Emily sat beside me, her waitress uniform replaced by a borrowed business suit, while Greg Matthews studied the USB drive's contents displayed on the projection screen. "This is more than embezzlement," Greg said, pausing on a particularly damning spreadsheet. "Your father's firm was running a sophisticated fraud scheme for years, using both his daughters as unwitting accomplices," Emily added, her voice hollow. "The perfect cover story." The door opened. Our parents walked in, followed by their lawyer. My father's confident stride faltered when he saw Emily sitting beside me. "What is this about, Sarah?" He tried to take control, as always. "Your mother and I have a charity function." "Sit down." My voice cut through his pretense. "You're going to want to hear this." Greg clicked to the next slide. Our father's signature on documents linking his firm to Mark's Ponzi scheme. Evidence of shell companies set up in both Emily's and my names. "Where did you get these?" The lawyer leaned forward. "Aunt Clara kept receipts." I met my father's eyes. "All of them." "This is absurd," he blustered. "Emily, surely you don't believe—" "I testified against Mark," Emily interrupted. "I can testify against you too." Our mother's perfectly manicured hands trembled. "We were protecting you both. By making me the fall guy." Emily's laugh was bitter. "By pushing Sarah into the restaurant business so you'd have a legitimate front for laundering money." I placed 2 folders on the table. Option 1, we turn everything over to the FBI. You go to prison, the firm collapses, and the Thompson name becomes synonymous with fraud. Option 2, our father's lawyer asked quickly. You sign these papers transferring control of the firm to Emily and me. You retire quietly, move to that beach house in Florida you bought with stolen money, and never contact us again. You can't be serious. Our father stood. Everything I built was built on lies. I remained seated, calm. Everything you made us believe about ourselves, about each other, it was all part of your game. We're your parents, our mother pleaded. We love you. No, Emily's voice cracked. You loved what we could do for you. There's a difference. Greg cleared his throat. The FBI has been notified. They're waiting for our call. You have 10 minutes to decide. Our father reached for the folders, but I pulled them back. One more thing. The diner, Pete's. You're signing it over to the staff. They've earned it. The diner? He looked confused. What does that matter now? It matters because it's where this started, where you thought I belonged. I smiled. Consider it karma. The minutes ticked by. Emily gripped my hand under the table as our parents whispered with their lawyer. Finally, our father picked up a pen. You'll regret this, he said, signing. Someday, you'll understand. We already understand. Emily took the pen, adding her signature where needed. That's the problem. After they left, Greg studied the signed papers. You realize you've just become CEO of a major investment firm. Co-CEO, I corrected, looking at Emily. If you want it. She straightened her borrowed blazer. I did pass the bar exam, even if I never practiced. Besides, someone needs to clean up their mess. And you? Greg asked me. Still interested in running my restaurant chain? I thought about the diner, about all the paths that had led us here. Actually, I have some ideas about expansion. Emily's firm could provide the capital. Legal capital, Emily added with a faint smile. We walked out together, leaving our parents' lawyer to pack up his briefcase. Outside, the sun was setting over the city skyline. Was this the revenge you wanted? Emily asked softly. No, I admitted. It's better. They wanted us to compete, to tear each other down. Instead, we're building something new. She squared her shoulders. Together. I nodded, watching our parents' car disappear into traffic. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what others built. It's about building something they never thought possible. The key to Aunt Clara's house felt heavier than usual as I unlocked the door one last time. The realtor's sign in the yard cast long shadows in the evening light. Inside, most of the furniture was gone, leaving only the essentials Emily and I had decided to keep. Found something else in the safe, she said, holding up a DVD case. It's labeled, For Sarah and Emily After. We sat on the floor, using my laptop to play the disc. Aunt Clara's face filled the screen, recorded months before her death. My dear girls, she began, if you're watching this, you've discovered the truth about your parents. But there's one more thing you need to know. Emily gripped my arm as Aunt Clara continued. Your parents didn't just manipulate you, they manipulated me too. Made me think I was protecting you by keeping their secrets. It took me too long to realize that protection sometimes means letting the truth hurt. The camera shifted, showing documents, recordings, a lifetime of evidence gathered not just against our parents, but against an entire network of fraud. I'm not proud I waited, Aunt Clara's voice continued, but I wanted you both strong enough to handle what came next. Sarah, your business acumen. Emily, your legal knowledge. Together, you're more powerful than they ever imagined. Emily paused the video. She planned this. All of it. No, I said, understanding finally. She gave us the tools to plan it ourselves. We watched the rest in silence. When it ended, I closed the laptop, looking around the study where everything had started. The diner staff signed the ownership papers today, Emily said. They're renaming it Clara's. I smiled, remembering our father's dismissal of my potential, his insistence that the diner was all I could hope for. Now it would stand as a monument to the aunt who'd seen what he couldn't. The FBI wants to interview Dad again, Emily continued. They found connections to 3 more investment firms. Let them. We have our own empire to build. She studied me. Do you ever wonder if we're just playing into their hands? Becoming what they wanted us to be? No. I stood, running my fingers along Aunt Clara's empty desk. They wanted us to compete, to tear each other down. Instead, we're stronger together. Emily joined me at the desk. The board meeting's tomorrow. Ready to announce the merger? Matthews Thompson Holdings. I tested the words. Think Greg will mind being the junior partner. He's getting 3 new restaurant locations out of the deal. He'll survive. We gathered our things, preparing to leave Aunt Clara's house for the last time. At the door, Emily hesitated. Sarah, that night you overheard Mum and Dad talking about the diner. Was that really when everything changed? I thought about it, remembering the anger, the hurt, the years of feeling second best. No, everything changed when I stopped letting their version of me define who I could become. And who are you now? The question hung in the air as I locked the door. Through the window, I could see Aunt Clara's garden, still blooming despite her absence. I'm someone who knows the difference between revenge and justice, I said finally. And more importantly, I'm someone who knows which one matters more. Emily nodded, understanding. We walked to our separate cars, headed to our separate homes, but connected now by something stronger than shared pain or shared triumph. I started my engine, watching Emily pull away first. Tomorrow we'd face the board, announce the merger, begin building something neither our parents nor Aunt Clara could have imagined. But tonight, in the quiet of Aunt Clara's empty house, I felt the last pieces of my old self, the angry, overlooked second daughter, finally fall away. The truth about revenge isn't that it heals you, it's that sometimes, in pursuing it, you find something better, the power to rewrite your own story on your own terms. I pulled away from the curb, leaving Aunt Clara's house and all its ghosts behind. Ahead lay the future we'd chosen, not the one chosen for us. And that, more than any revenge, was the sweetest victory of all. How did that story make you feel? If you were in my shoes, would you have done the same? Share your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to hear from you. But don't go anywhere just yet, because the next story, it's even more powerful, packed with unexpected twists, raw emotions, and moments that will catch you completely off guard. Are you ready? Let's jump right in. The morning dew still clung to the roses when I heard the crunch of expensive heels on my garden path. I didn't need to look up to know who it was. Only one person would dare to wear Louboutins to stomp through my father's prized garden. Méline! Her voice dripped with fake sweetness. Still playing in the dirt, I see. I continued pruning my father's white roses, the ones he'd planted for my wedding day. The wedding that had ended in divorce papers, and my ex-husband running off with the woman now standing behind me. Hello, Haley. You know why I'm here. She moved closer, her shadow falling across the flower bed. The reading of the will is tomorrow, and Holden and I think it's best if we discuss things civilly. I finally turned around, wiping my soil-covered hands on my gardening apron. There's nothing to discuss. This is my father's house, his estate. Was, Haley corrected, her perfectly painted red lips curling into a smirk. And since Holden was like a son to Miles for 15 years, we believe we're entitled to our fair share. The pruning shears in my hand suddenly felt heavier. The same Holden who cheated on his daughter with his secretary. That Holden. Ancient history. Haley waved her manicured hand dismissively. Miles forgave him. They still played golf every Sunday until... She paused for dramatic effect. Well, you know. My father's death was still raw, a wound that hadn't even begun to scab over. He'd been gone just 2 weeks. And here was this woman, this vulture, circling what she thought was easy prey. My father wouldn't have left Holden anything, I said firmly, standing up to my full height. He was many things, but he wasn't stupid. Haley's fake smile faltered. We'll see about that. Your brother Isaiah seems to think differently. The mention of my brother sent a chill down my spine. We hadn't spoken since Dad's funeral, where he'd spent more time consoling Holden than his own sister. You've spoken to Isaiah? Oh, honey. Haley stepped closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. We've done more than speak. He's been very helpful. I gripped the pruning shears tighter, remembering Dad's words from years ago. The roses need a firm hand, Maddie, but never a cruel one. Even the sharpest thorns serve a purpose. Get off my property, Haley, I said quietly, before I forget my manners. She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Your property? That's cute. This house is worth millions, Malene. Did you really think you'd get to keep it all to yourself? Playing house in your daddy's mansion while the rest of us get nothing? My father built this house brick by brick, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. He planted every tree, designed every room. This isn't about money. This is about legacy. Legacy? Haley snorted. Wake up, Malene. Everything is about money. And tomorrow, when that will is read, you're going to learn that the hard way. She turned to leave, but paused at the garden gate. Oh, and you might want to start packing. Holden and I will need at least a month to renovate before we move in. As her heels clacked down the path, I looked down at the roses, their white petals now spotted with soil where my trembling hands had crushed them. Dad had always said white roses represented new beginnings, but all I could see was red. I pulled out my phone and dialed the one person I knew would understand. Aaliyah, it's me. Haley just paid me a visit. Yeah, she's exactly as bad as we thought. Can you come over? There's something about the will I need to discuss with you. My best friend's voice was firm and reassuring. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't worry, Malene. Your father was smarter than they know. As I ended the call, I noticed a small envelope poking out from beneath one of the rose bushes, its corner damp with dew. The handwriting on it was unmistakably my father's, and it was addressed to me. I picked it up with shaking hands, wondering how long it had been waiting there, hidden among the thorns. The paper felt heavy, like it carried more than just words. Well, Dad, I whispered, turning the envelope over in my hands. Looks like you left me one last surprise. The sound of Haley's car engine faded into the distance as I stood in the garden, holding what felt like the first piece of a puzzle my father had left behind. Whatever game Haley and Holden were playing, I had a feeling they were about to learn they'd chosen the wrong opponent. Aaliyah arrived exactly when she promised, her legal briefcase in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. I figured we might need this, she said, holding up the wine as she walked into Dad's study. I was still holding the unopened envelope, perched on the edge of my father's leather chair. The room smelled of his pipe tobacco and old books, a scent I wasn't ready to lose to Haley's promised renovations. You haven't opened it yet? Aaliyah nodded at the envelope, setting her briefcase down with a heavy thunk. I wanted to wait for you. I turned the envelope over again. After what Haley said about Isaiah helping them, open it, Aaliyah insisted, pouring 2 generous glasses of wine. Your father was very specific about certain things being revealed at certain times. My head snapped up. What do you mean? She handed me a glass. Open the letter, Malene. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a small key. Dear Maddie, I read aloud, my father's voice echoing in my head. If you're reading this, then someone has already made a move on the estate. Knowing human nature as I do, I'm guessing it's Haley. She always did remind me of a shark, all teeth and no soul. Aaliyah snorted into her wine glass. The key enclosed opens the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside you'll find everything you need to protect what's yours. Remember what I taught you about chess? Sometimes you have to sacrifice a pawn to protect the queen. Love, Dad. I looked up at Aaliyah, who was already moving toward the desk. You knew about this. I helped him set it up, she admitted, gesturing for me to use the key. Your father came to me 6 months ago, right after his diagnosis. He knew exactly how things would play out. The drawer opened with a soft click. Inside was a thick manila envelope and a USB drive. Before you look at those, Aaliyah said, sitting on the edge of the desk, there's something you need to know about tomorrow's will reading. Your father added a codicil 3 days before he died. A what? A modification to the will, and trust me, it's going to change everything. I spread the contents of the manila envelope across the desk. Photos spilled out, dozens of them. Haley meeting with someone in a dark parking lot. Holden entering a lawyer's office that wasn't Aaliyah's. Bank statements, email printouts. Dad had them investigated. Better. Aaliyah's smile was sharp. He had them followed. That USB drive contains video footage of Haley attempting to bribe your father's nurse for information about his will 2 days before he died. My hands shook as I picked up one of the photos. Is that Isaiah meeting with Haley? 3 weeks before your father's death, Aaliyah confirmed. But look at his face in the next photo. The second photo showed my brother leaving the meeting. His expression twisted with disgust. He was holding what looked like a check. He kept the check as evidence, Aaliyah explained. Brought it straight to your father. That's when Miles knew he had to act fast. But Haley said Isaiah was helping them. Your brother's been playing a dangerous game, Malene. Feeding them just enough information to keep them confident, all while helping your father gather evidence of their conspiracy. I sank back into the chair, my mind spinning. Why didn't he tell me? Because Haley needed to show her hand first. Aaliyah pulled out some papers from her briefcase. Tomorrow, when I read the will, Haley and Holden are going to think they've won. The initial reading will grant them a significant portion of the estate. What? I stood up so fast, my wine glass tipped over, staining the carpet red. Let me finish. Aaliyah held up her hand. That's when the codicil kicks in. Your father set up a trap, Malene. The moment they accept the inheritance, they trigger a clause that reveals their attempted manipulation and fraud. Everything, the photos, the videos, the bribes, becomes public record. I stared at the evidence spread across the desk, understanding dawning. He made them think they won, so they'd incriminate themselves. Exactly. Aaliyah's grin was triumphant. The real will leaves everything to you, with a trust set up for Isaiah. Haley and Holden get nothing except a very public exposure of their true characters. And tomorrow, Aaliyah finished her wine. We watch them walk right into the trap they set for themselves. Your father's last lesson about consequences. I picked up his letter again, running my fingers over his familiar handwriting. Even from beyond the grave, he was protecting me, teaching me, helping me fight back. One more thing, Aaliyah said softly. Isaiah asked to see you tonight. He has something else you need to know before tomorrow. I looked out the study window at the setting sun, thinking of my brother, of Haley's smug face in the garden, of all the pieces my father had carefully put in place. Tell him to come over, I said. It's time we had a family reunion. Isaiah arrived after dark, looking nothing like the confident brother who'd stood beside Holden at the funeral. His designer suit was wrinkled, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He hesitated at the study doorway, clutching a leather portfolio like a shield. "You look terrible," I said, breaking the ice. "Yeah, well, playing double agent isn't as fun as the movies make it seem." He attempted a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Can I come in?" I gestured to the chair across from me. Aaliyah had left an hour ago, but the evidence of our earlier discovery still littered Dad's desk. "I see you found Dad's insurance policy," Isaiah said, nodding at the photos. "Why didn't you tell me what you were doing?" The question came out sharper than I intended. He slumped into the chair. "Because I needed to make it right. After everything with Holden, the way I treated you during the divorce, I was an idiot, Maddie." "You were my brother," I corrected. "You were supposed to be on my side." "I know." He opened the portfolio and pulled out a check. "This is what Haley offered me to testify that Dad wasn't of sound mind when he made his final will. $500,000 to betray my own sister." I stared at the check, then at my brother. "But you didn't cash it." "No, I took it straight to Dad." Isaiah's voice cracked. "You should have seen his face, Maddie. Not angry, just disappointed." That's when he told me about his plan. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed 9 times, each dong echoing through the tense silence. "There's more," Isaiah continued, pulling out a phone. "I recorded everything, every meeting, every offer, every threat. Haley, she's been planning this for months, even before Dad got sick." He pressed play. Haley's voice filled the room. "Once the old man kicks it, we'll contest the will with your testimony about his mental state and Holden's long relationship with him. We'll get everything. That Malene won't know what hit her." My hands clenched into fists. "When was this?" 2 months ago. But wait, there's worse. He fast-forwarded the recording. Holden's voice now. "We'll sell the house, liquidate the assets. Malene can go back to her little apartment and her pathetic gardening business. She never deserved any of this anyway." "Turn it off," I whispered. Isaiah complied, then pulled out one final document. "This is why I came tonight. Haley didn't just want the money, Maddie. She wanted revenge on you." "Revenge? For what?" "For making Holden feel guilty, for making him pay alimony, for—" He paused. "For making him look bad when you caught them together." The memory hit me like a physical blow. Walking into my own bedroom, finding them there. Haley's triumphant smile as my marriage crumbled. "She was his secretary for 3 years," Isaiah continued. "She planned everything, worked her way into his life, into Dad's social circle. This document proves she started embezzling from Dad's company 6 months before you caught them." I snatched the paper, scanning the bank transfers and account numbers. "Dad knew about this. Found out right before his diagnosis. He was building a case against her, but the cancer—" Isaiah's voice trailed off. "That's when he started planning this instead. Said sometimes justice needs a different path." "The codicil," I murmured. "Yeah. Tomorrow's going to be brutal, Maddie. They think they've got it all figured out. Haley's even hired a camera crew to document the historic moment when they take possession of the estate." Despite everything, I laughed. "She hired cameras to record her own downfall. Dad would have appreciated the irony." Isaiah smiled, a real one this time. "Listen, I know I can't fix the past 3 years with one night of revelations, but I want you to know I'm here now. Whatever happens tomorrow, I've got your back." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at Dad's garden silvered by moonlight. Remember when we were kids and Dad caught us fighting over that toy car? The red Corvette. Isaiah joined me at the window. He made us wash every window in the house, said we needed to learn to see things clearly. I turned to face my brother. "I see clearly now, Isaiah. I see what Dad was trying to teach us, even at the end." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. That sometimes the biggest victory isn't in winning. It's in letting your enemies defeat themselves, I finished. The grandfather clock chimed 1:15, reminding us that tomorrow was getting closer with each tick. "You should get some rest," Isaiah said, gathering his evidence. "Tomorrow's going to be one hell of a show." As I watched him leave, I touched the window pane, cool and solid under my fingers. Dad had always loved these windows, said they were the eyes of the house watching over his family. Tomorrow they would witness justice served exactly the way he had planned it. The morning of the will reading dawned bright and clear. I was in Dad's study again, this time watching Aaliyah arrange papers on the massive oak desk while camera equipment was set up around the room. "Haley's camera crew is here," Isaiah announced, slipping through the door. "You should see her out there, practicing her gracious acceptance speech." "Everything ready?" I asked Aaliyah. She patted her briefcase. "All set. The codicil is sealed in this envelope, along with copies of all the evidence, once they accept the initial terms." A commotion in the hallway cut her off. Haley's voice carried through the door, high and excited. "This is where we'll put the new chandelier. The old one is so dated." "Places, everyone," Aaliyah muttered, straightening her suit jacket. "Let the show begin." Haley swept in first, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Holden followed, looking uncomfortable in his tailored suit. The camera crew trailed behind them, adjusting lights and checking angles. "Malene?" Holden nodded stiffly. It was the first time he'd spoken to me directly since the divorce. "Let's begin," Aaliyah announced, taking her place behind Dad's desk. As Miles's attorney, I'll be reading his last will and testament, along with any additional documents he prepared before his passing. Haley practically bounced in her seat. "We're ready." The initial reading went exactly as Aaliyah had warned me. Dad's estate, including the house and company shares, was to be divided, 60% to me, 40% to Holden and Haley. "I knew it," Haley squealed, grabbing Holden's arm. "Miles loved us too much to leave us out." "However," Aaliyah continued, her voice cutting through Haley's celebration, "there is a codicil to the will, added 3 days before Miles's death." Haley's smile faltered. "A what?" "A modification," Holden explained, suddenly looking nervous. "What kind of modification?" Aaliyah broke the seal on the envelope. "The acceptance of any inheritance under this will is contingent upon a full investigation into certain financial irregularities discovered in the months preceding Miles's death." The room went silent. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. "What irregularities?" Haley's voice had lost its triumphant edge. "Perhaps these will explain," Aaliyah said, sliding the photos across the desk. "Or this USB drive containing footage of attempted bribery, or these bank statements showing systematic embezzlement from Harrison Industries." Holden grabbed one of the photos, his face draining of color. "Where did you get these?" "Dad had quite the collection of evidence," Isaiah spoke up from his corner, "including recordings of you both planning to contest the will based on false testimony about his mental state." Haley stood up so fast, her chair toppled backward. "Turn those cameras off, now." "Oh no," I said, standing to face her. "The cameras stay. You wanted to document this historic moment, remember?" "You can't do this," she hissed. "Holden, tell them they can't do this." But Holden was still staring at the photos, particularly one showing him entering a competitor's office with confidential company documents. "The codicil is quite clear," Aaliyah continued, professional as ever. "Any attempt to claim an inheritance automatically triggers the release of all this evidence to the proper authorities. The choice is yours." "Choice?" Haley laughed hysterically. "What choice? You've trapped us." "No," I corrected her. "You trapped yourselves. Every scheme, every plot, every attempt to steal what wasn't yours, it all led to this moment. This is your fault." She whirled on Isaiah. "You were supposed to help us." Isaiah shrugged. "I did help, just not you." "Holden," she pleaded, "do something." But Holden was already standing, straightening his tie with shaking hands. "It's over, Haley. We've lost." "The hell it is. I won't let that witch win." "That witch is my daughter." Dad's voice filled the room. Everyone froze as Aaliyah pressed play on a video file. Dad's face appeared on one of the camera crew's monitors, thin but determined, recorded just days before his death. "And if you're watching this, it means you've shown your true colors. Just as I knew you would. Greed is a terrible teacher, but consequences are excellent students. Haley's mascara ran in black streaks as she backed toward the door. This isn't over. Actually, Aaliyah said, it is. The police are waiting in the foyer to discuss the evidence of embezzlement. I'd suggest cooperating. It might help with sentencing. As Haley and Holden were led away, the cameras still rolling, I felt Dad's presence in every corner of the room. He'd orchestrated it all, not just to protect his legacy, but to teach one final lesson about justice and patience. Well, Isaiah said into the silence, I guess those cameras caught their historic moment after all. The media circus that followed was exactly what Haley had wanted, just not in the way she'd planned. By evening, local news vans lined the street, and my phone wouldn't stop buzzing with calls from reporters. You need to see this, Isaiah said, turning up the volume on Dad's old television in the study. Haley's arrest was playing on every channel. Her mascara-streaked face, a stark contrast to her designer dress, as officers led her to a police car. The investigation into Harrison Industries has uncovered multiple instances of fraud, the reporter's voice droned on. Turn it off, I said, rubbing my temples. I can't watch anymore. Aaliyah burst through the door, waving her phone. It gets better. The DA just called. They found offshore accounts, dummy corporations, everything. Haley wasn't just stealing from your father's company. She was running a whole network of fraud schemes. And Holden? I asked. Not sure why I still cared about my ex-husband's fate. Singing like a canary, Isaiah replied. Turns out he's not so loyal when facing serious prison time. A sharp knock at the study door made us all jump. A police detective entered, looking apologetic. Miss Harrison, we need to discuss some additional evidence we've uncovered. More? I gestured for him to sit. What now? We found documents in Miss West's apartment suggesting this wasn't her first attempt at this type of scheme. There are at least 3 other cases of her targeting wealthy families, though she never succeeded on this scale before. Aaliyah leaned forward. Other families? Yes. She would typically work her way into their lives through employment or social connections, then orchestrate situations to gain access to their assets. The detective pulled out a folder. Sound familiar? The secretary position, I whispered. It wasn't random. No, it wasn't. She specifically targeted your ex-husband because of his connection to your father's company. The affair was just her way in. My stomach turned. 3 years of blame and self-doubt about my failed marriage suddenly shifted perspective. There's something else, the detective continued. We found this in her personal files. It appears to be a detailed plan for after she gained control of the estate. He handed me a document that made my blood run cold. Detailed notes about accidents that could befall me after the transfer of property, plans to frame Isaiah for financial misconduct, even sketches of how she wanted to remodel the house, starting with destroying Dad's garden. She would have killed me, I said flatly. She never would have gotten the chance, Isaiah growled, gripping the arm of his chair. The detective nodded grimly. This evidence upgrades the charges significantly. Combined with the fraud charges and attempted bribery, she's looking at 15 to 20 years minimum. After he left, we sat in stunned silence until Aaliyah's phone buzzed again. It's my contact at the DA's office, she said, reading the message. Holden just finished his statement. He's admitted to everything, including helping Haley access confidential company files before Dad's death. Did he know? I had to ask. About her plans for me? No, Isaiah answered, scanning the documents. According to this, she kept that part to herself. Probably knew he wouldn't have the stomach for it. A thought struck me. Dad knew, didn't he? That's why he put all this in motion. Aaliyah nodded slowly. He suspected. That's why he hired the private investigators, why he documented everything. He wasn't just protecting his legacy, he was protecting you. I walked to the window, looking out at the garden now swarming with news crews. The roses still bloomed, oblivious to the chaos their previous admirer had planned. We should release a statement, Isaiah suggested. Control the narrative before Haley's lawyers try to spin this. Already drafted, Aaliyah pulled out her laptop. A simple statement about cooperating with authorities and requesting privacy during this difficult time. Professional, dignified, everything Haley wasn't. Dad would like that, I said, managing a small smile. There's one more thing, Isaiah said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. I found this in Dad's personal safe. It's marked, "After justice is served." My hands shook as I opened it, recognizing Dad's handwriting once again. My dear Maddie, if you're reading this, then the truth has finally come to light. Don't let this experience harden your heart. The garden still needs tending, and life still needs living. I didn't set this trap just for justice. I did it so you could be free. Free from doubt, free from fear, and free to bloom again. Love, Dad. Outside, the reporters continued their live broadcasts, telling the world about the scandal, the arrests, the betrayal. But inside the study, surrounded by the evidence of my father's love and foresight, I finally felt something I hadn't experienced since finding Holden with Haley 3 years ago. Peace. So, Isaiah said, breaking the silence, what now? I looked at the roses outside, then at my brother and best friend. Now we rebuild. Together. The preliminary hearing came faster than any of us expected. 1 month after the will reading, I found myself sitting in a courtroom, watching Haley and Holden being led in wearing orange jumpsuits, a far cry from their designer clothes. All rise, the bailiff called out. Aaliyah squeezed my hand as we stood. She'd insisted on being both my lawyer and moral support, saying some moments required both legal expertise and friendship. You don't have to speak today, she whispered. The evidence speaks for itself. But I knew I had to. Dad's last letter had said not to let this harden my heart, and staying silent felt too much like fear. Haley's eyes locked onto mine as she passed our bench. The hatred in them was palpable, but something else flickered there too. Desperation. Her lawyer had been trying to negotiate a plea deal, but the DA wasn't budging, not with the mountain of evidence against her. Your Honor, the prosecutor began, the state would like to enter into evidence, Exhibits A through F, documenting a pattern of systematic fraud and conspiracy spanning 3 years. I watched as they displayed the photos, the bank statements, the recordings. Haley's face grew paler with each new piece of evidence. Holden just stared at his hands, shoulders slumped in defeat. The state calls Madison Harrison to the stand. Walking to the witness box felt like crossing an ocean. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, the journalists scribbling in their notebooks, the jury leaning forward in anticipation, Haley's gaze burning into my back. Please state your name for the record. Madison Harrison. Can you tell us about your relationship with the defendants? I took a deep breath, looking straight at Haley. Holden was my husband for 15 years. Haley was his secretary and the woman he had an affair with. And after our divorce, they married 6 months later. Then they started visiting my father, building a relationship with him while he was sick. Objection. Haley's lawyer stood. Relevance? Goes to motive, Your Honor, the prosecutor countered. Shows the systematic nature of their plan. Overruled. Continue. I described everything. The visits, the manipulation, Haley's threats in the garden, the evidence Dad had collected. With each word, I could see Haley's carefully constructed facade crumbling. Miss Harrison, the prosecutor held up the documents found in Haley's apartment. When did you become aware of these plans regarding your safety? Objection, Haley's lawyer practically shouted. Those documents are circumstantial, Your Honor. These documents detail specific plans to harm the witness after gaining control of the estate. The judge peered at Haley over his glasses. Overruled. I learned about them after their arrest, I answered, my voice steady. My father suspected something like this might happen. That's why he gathered all the evidence, why he changed his will. He was protecting me, even after he was gone. Haley suddenly stood up, her handcuffs rattling. He was a manipulative old man who couldn't stand to see his precious daughter lose anything. This whole thing is a setup. "Miss West, sit down," the judge ordered. "You think you've won?" Haley shouted at me. "You think this is over? I made your husband leave you once. I destroyed your marriage, and I'll find a way to destroy everything else too." The courtroom erupted in chaos. Officers rushed to restrain Haley as she continued screaming threats. Holden looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. "Order!" The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. "Remove the defendant." As they dragged Haley away, still shouting, I caught Isaiah's eye in the gallery. He gave me a subtle nod. Everything she just said had been caught on the court record, destroying any chance of sympathy from the jury. The judge called a recess, and Aaliyah hurried me out of the courtroom. In the hallway, reporters clamored for comments, but she expertly steered me past them. "Well," she said, once we were safely in a private room, "I'd say that outburst just sealed their fate. Did you see Holden's face?" Isaiah joined us, closing the door on the media circus outside. He finally saw her for what she really is. I sank into a chair, exhaustion hitting me all at once. Dad knew. He knew exactly how she would react when cornered. "Because people like that can't stand losing control," Aaliyah said, pulling out her phone. "The DA is texting me already. They want to move forward with additional charges based on her threats in court." "How much time is she looking at now?" 25 to 30 years minimum. Holden might get less with his cooperation, but he's still looking at 10 to 15. I thought about Dad's roses, still blooming in the garden he'd loved. He always said the truth finds its way to the light eventually. "Speaking of truth," Isaiah said, "there's something else you need to know about Dad's evidence. Something we found in his personal safe this morning." Back in Dad's study, Isaiah pulled out a weathered leather journal. The police found this when they were doing their final sweep of Haley's apartment. It was hidden in a false bottom of her desk drawer. "What is it?" I reached for the journal, but Isaiah held it back. "Before you read this, you need to understand. Dad knew about this journal. It's why he was so certain about Haley's intentions." Aaliyah leaned forward. "Is this what I think it is?" "Her playbook," Isaiah confirmed. "Detailed accounts of every family she's targeted, every scheme she's run, including her original plans for us." He opened the journal to a marked page and began reading. "The Harrison family presents the perfect opportunity. Wealthy patriarch, strained family relationships, naive daughter who trusts too easily. The husband is the weak link, easily manipulated with flattery and attention." My stomach turned. "Stop. You need to hear this, Maddie." Isaiah continued reading. "Phase 1 complete. Marriage destroyed. Phase 2. Isolate the daughter from her support system. Phase 3. Gain the father's trust. Final phase. Eliminate all obstacles permanently." "That's when Dad confronted her, isn't it?" I asked, remembering Dad's sudden insistence on updating his will. Aaliyah nodded. "He showed me this journal 3 months ago. That's when we started building the case against her." "But there's more," Isaiah said, flipping to another section. "She wasn't working alone. There's a whole network of people involved in these schemes. Names, dates, bank accounts, everything." A sharp knock interrupted us. The detective from earlier entered, looking grimmer than before. "We've been going through Ms. West's contacts," he announced. "Found something interesting about her past. She's not who she claims to be." He laid out a series of documents on Dad's desk: birth certificates, passports, driver's licenses, all with different names, but the same face. Her real name is Margaret Phillips. She's wanted in 3 states for similar schemes. The FBI has been looking for her for years. Margaret Phillips? The name hit me like a physical blow. The woman who was convicted of killing that businessman in Florida. His death was ruled an accident, the detective corrected. But yes, same person. She served 5 years for fraud, got out, changed her identity, and started over. Your father was her biggest target yet. Aaliyah was already on her phone. "I'm calling the DA. This changes everything. With these priors, she's looking at life in prison." "There's something else," the detective added. "We found this in her safety deposit box." He handed me a USB drive. It's footage of your father confronting her about the journal. Thought you might want to see it. With shaking hands, I plugged the drive into Dad's computer. His face filled the screen, sitting in this very study, looking directly at Haley. I know what you're planning. Dad's voice was steel. I've read your little journal. Quite the career you've had, Margaret. Haley's face on the screen went white. How did you... Did you really think I wouldn't investigate the woman trying to destroy my family? I've known who you are since the day you started working for my company. Then why? Why did you let me continue? Because sometimes the best way to catch a snake is to let it think it's winning. Dad leaned forward. You're finished, Margaret. Everything you've done, everyone you've hurt, it ends here. You're dying. Haley. Margaret spat. You can't stop me. Dad's laugh was cold. My dear, I already have. You just don't know it yet. The video ended, leaving us in stunned silence. He knew, I whispered. He knew everything right from the start. And he built an airtight case, Aaliyah added, one that would protect you and expose her entire network. The detective gathered his documents. The FBI wants to talk to you tomorrow. With this journal and your father's evidence, we can take down her whole organization. After he left, I walked to Dad's chair, running my hand along the worn leather. He let her think she was winning, all while making sure she'd never hurt anyone again. Classic Dad, Isaiah smiled, always playing the long game. Aaliyah's phone buzzed. The DA just approved the new charges. They're upgrading it to a federal case. Haley, or Margaret, will never see the outside of a prison again. I picked up Dad's journal from his desk, the one he'd kept all his life, and opened it to his last entry. Sometimes justice takes patience, sometimes it takes sacrifice, but most importantly, it takes faith in the truth. Maddie will understand when the time comes. The garden will bloom again, stronger than before. The preliminary hearing resumes tomorrow, Aaliyah said softly. Are you ready to finish this? I looked at the evidence spread across the desk, at Dad's journal, at the garden beyond the window where all this began. Yes, I said. It's time to end this. For Dad, for everyone she's ever hurt. And for you, Isaiah added. Mostly for you. The gavel's final crack echoed through the courtroom like thunder. In light of the overwhelming evidence and the additional federal charges, this court sentences Margaret Phillips, also known as Haley West, to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Haley, Margaret, stood rigid in her orange jumpsuit, all traces of her former polished facade gone. When they led her past our bench, she stopped, turning to face me one last time. I hope you're happy, she hissed. You've ruined everything. No, I replied calmly. You did that yourself. The only difference is that this time, your target fought back. The bailiff pulled her away as she tried to respond. Behind her, Holden was already being led out to begin his own 15-year sentence. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us, but Aaliyah's firm voice cut through the chaos. My client has no comment except to say that justice has been served, not just for her family, but for all the families affected by these crimes. Back at the house, Isaiah was waiting with a surprise. The FBI finished processing Dad's study. They found this hidden in his desk. He handed me a small box. Inside was a single key and a note. For when justice blooms, check the greenhouse. The greenhouse had always been Dad's private sanctuary, a place he retreated to when he needed to think. I hadn't been inside since his death. Want us to come with you? Aaliyah asked. I shook my head. I need to do this alone. The greenhouse key turned smoothly in the lock. Inside, the air was warm and thick, with the scent of blooming flowers. Dad's prized orchids still thrived, clearly tended by someone, probably Isaiah, during these past months. In the center of the greenhouse stood Dad's workbench, and on it, a large envelope with my name on it. Inside was a deed and another letter. My dearest Maddie, by now justice has been served and the truth has come to light. But justice wasn't the only thing I wanted to cultivate. In this greenhouse, I grew more than flowers. I grew hope. Hope for you to find your strength again, to bloom despite the shadows others cast. The deed in this envelope is for the vacant lot next to your old flower shop. I bought it the day after I confronted Margaret. It's time for Harrison Gardens to grow beyond our home. Your talent for bringing beauty into the world shouldn't be limited to one garden. Remember what I taught you. Some flowers bloom best after a frost. You've weathered your winter, Maddie. Now it's time to bloom again. Love always, Dad. I walked back to the house in a daze, clutching the deed and letter. Isaiah and Aaliyah were waiting in the kitchen. Well, Isaiah asked. I spread the deed on the counter. He bought me the lot next to my old shop. He wanted me to expand the business. That's not all he did. Aaliyah pulled out her tablet. The Harrison Gardens trademark was registered 6 months ago. He set up everything. Business plans, permits, funding. All it needs is you. And us, Isaiah added. I've learned a thing or two about gardening these past months. Someone had to keep his orchids alive. A knock at the door interrupted us. The detective entered, looking pleased. Just thought you'd want to know. 3 more victims of Margaret's schemes have come forward with their testimony. And with your father's evidence, we're looking at closing over a dozen cold cases. Dad would have liked that, I said. He always believed every truth finds its light eventually. Speaking of truth, Isaiah said after the detective left, I found something else while tending the greenhouse. He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo of a small plaque hidden among the orchids. The inscription read, "For Maddie, who taught me that the strongest flowers grow in broken places." He put that there right after my divorce, I realized. He knew even then that I'd find my way back. So, Aaliyah said, pulling out her legal pad with a familiar glint in her eye, should I start drawing up the business papers for Harrison Gardens? I looked out at Dad's garden, where the roses still bloomed despite everything that had happened. Beyond them, I could see the future he'd planned for me. Not just justice, but growth. Not just survival, but flourishing. Yes, I said, feeling stronger than I had in years. It's time to grow something new. To Dad, Isaiah raised his coffee mug. To justice, Aaliyah added, raising hers. I picked up my own mug, thinking of orchids and roses, of truth in time, of endings and beginnings. To blooming again. Through the window, the garden glowed in the afternoon sun, each flower a testament to Dad's belief that beauty can grow even in life's hardest soil. He'd given me more than justice. He'd given me back my future, one bloom at a time.